The Valdrin Armada hung in the void like a swarm of metallic locusts, their warships bristling with weapons that had conquered 17 star systems. Commander Zexthor stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion, his 4 eyes gleaming with anticipation as Earth's blue-green sphere filled the viewport. "Primitive world," he hissed to his second-in-command. Their transmissions speak of nations divided, of wars over resources, of inequality and chaos. They will surrender within a solar rotation. What Zexthor didn't know was that humanity had been waiting, watching, preparing. Diana Chen sat in the war room buried 3 kilometers beneath Geneva, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that would have seemed like magic to her great-grandparents. Around her, representatives from every nation on Earth maintained an eerie silence. The invasion they had long theorized about had finally arrived. "Captain Chen?" The UN Secretary General's voice crackled through the comm. "Are the protocols ready?" Diana's jaw tightened. She had spent 15 years developing Earth's defense systems that no civilian knew existed. "Yes, sir. Awaiting your authorization." Oliver Martinez watched the same feeds from the International Space Station, though calling it that was now a deliberate misnomer. The ISS had been transformed over decades into the first line of humanity's secret defense network. His engineering team had disguised weapons platforms as solar panels, railgun batteries as communication arrays, and kinetic strike systems as water recyclers. "Diana," Oliver spoke into his encrypted channel, his voice calm despite the 1,000 warships approaching Earth. "They're sending a transmission, broadcasting on all frequencies." The message was simple, delivered in perfectly translated human languages. "People of Earth, your world is now property of the Valdrin Imperium. Surrender your governments, your resources, and your strongest specimens. Resistance will result in extinction. You have 1 planetary rotation to comply." Diana closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of her daughter in Shanghai, her brother in New York, her parents in Buenos Aires. Then she opened them, and they were hard as diamonds. "Send the response," she ordered. Across every screen on every Valdrin ship a message appeared. Not a plea for mercy, not a surrender. Just 7 words in calm, measured tones. "Leave now or perish. Final warning." Zexthor's laughter echoed through the bridge. His crew joined in, a cacophony of alien mirth. "They dare threaten us?" "Ready the planetary bombardment cannons. We will turn their capitals to glass." But his weapons officer's voice cut through the laughter, uncertain. "Commander." "I'm detecting massive power signatures across their planet. Underground installations. Orbital platforms. They've been hidden." "Impossible," Zexthor snarled. "Their technology is centuries behind. The first railgun round from the ISS traveled at 3% the speed of light. It punched through the shields of a Valdrin destroyer like paper, the kinetic energy alone causing the ship to tear itself apart from the inside. Molten metal sprayed into the void. Oliver didn't celebrate. He simply called out the next target. "Diana, they're moving into attack formation, activating secondary platforms." What the Valdrin had thought were satellites suddenly unfolded, revealing themselves as automated defense drones. Hundreds of them, each one equipped with weapons that humanity had reverse-engineered from a crashed alien probe. 70 years ago, the event that had triggered humanity's secret militarization. Diana watched her screens as the dance of death began. "Deploy the Luna batteries. Authorization Chen Delta 9. On the moon's far side, massive hangar doors that had been disguised as craters for 40 years slid open. Missile platforms rose from the lunar surface, each one carrying warheads with yields that would have horrified civilian populations. But this was no longer about morality. This was about survival. Zexthor watched in horror as his fleet began to die. Ships that had crushed alien civilizations were being picked apart with surgical precision. How? Our intelligence showed nothing." His tactical officer's voice shook. "Commander, they've been broadcasting false data for decades. Old wars, primitive weapons, it was all misdirection. They've been unified for longer than our records indicate. Their internet, their communications, they've been feeding us lies." Another wave of missiles struck from the moon, each one finding its mark with impossible accuracy. Diana had spent years developing the AI targeting systems, teaching them to think like predators, to anticipate, to adapt. Oliver's voice came through her headset, tense but controlled. "Diana, they're trying to retreat. The flagship is turning. Let them go, Diana said softly. Then after a pause, no, we can't let them go. They'll come back with more. She thought of the 17 civilizations the Valdrin had conquered. She thought of what would happen if Earth showed mercy, and the Valdrin returned with 1,000 armadas instead of one. Weapons free, she ordered. All platforms. No survivors. The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, debris scattered across Earth's orbital space like a metallic asteroid field. Not a single Valdrin ship escaped. Oliver watched from the ISS as automated drones began the cleanup operation, collecting the wreckage for study, for salvage, for evidence. Diana, he said quietly, are we going to tell them? The civilians? Diana stared at her screens, at the casualty count, 0 human losses, and the destruction of an entire alien armada. Humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy not as victims but as apex predators. We tell them everything, she said finally. The secret is over. They deserve to know what we did, what we built, and why we had to do it. And if more come? Oliver asked. Diana allowed herself a grim smile. Then we'll give them the same warning. And the same result. Across the galaxy, automated probes detected the battle's aftermath. They transmitted data back to 12 alien civilizations, all of whom had been watching Earth, waiting to see if the Valdrin would soften the planet up for easier conquest. The message was clear. Humanity was not prey. Earth was not a target, it was a fortress. And humanity, fragmented and chaotic as they seemed, had proven what made them truly dangerous. They could pretend to be weak while sharpening their knives in the dark. They could lie with perfect conviction, and when threatened, they could unite with terrifying efficiency. One civilization, the Travani Collective, immediately recalled their scout ships from Sol system. Their High Council convened an emergency session with a single agenda item: establish diplomatic relations with Earth immediately, and never, under any circumstances, threaten them. The age of humanity being the galaxy's underdogs had ended in those 18 minutes. The age of humanity as one of the great powers had just begun, and it had started with 7 simple words. Leave now or perish. Final warning.